Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, your creativity and spiritual life coach, and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words in these conversations embolden and inspire you. And before we go into this week's episode with Teresa Trieb, I just want to share with you some ways that I can support you. Firstly, you can tune into the sister podcast to this title, Her Inspirations, and in each episode, I explore with you a different aspect of our spiritual and creative journeys. Also, if you join the mailing list to that, you'll receive additional emails with teaching points and resources that will help you on your own personal journey. Or if you're someone that's always wanted to use your voice, whether that means you're starting a podcast, you're showing up online more, you're doing public speaking, or you want to be more vocal in your life, I've created Your Awakened Voice for you. This is my course that uses my holistic approach, acknowledging the intricate connection between your physical body, mind, and spirit. This course empowers you to discover and develop your voice. Or maybe you're ready for a more intimate container and you're ready to work one-to-one with me. If you know there's a purpose to your life, my purpose is here to support you. In particular, I work with women over 40. I help you trust your intuition, rediscover that innate creativity, and use your decades of wisdom to design your purposeful life. All the links to these are in the show notes below. My guest this week is Teresa Trieb, a dedicated breathwork facilitator who is deeply committed to helping others discover the transformative power of conscious breathing. She guides individuals and groups through various breathwork techniques, including euphoric breathing and holotropic breathing. Each session is carefully designed to create a safe and nurturing space for health and performance enhancement, self-exploration and growth. During our conversation, Teresa shares about her own personal experiences with breath work and her mission to share this empowering practice with as many people as possible. Before recording this episode, Teresa guided me through a session and I talk about what it was like for me and the shifts that I noticed during and after my session. So as always, I begin by asking my guest. HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
So for me, that means that bliss after a breathwork session. And it really doesn't matter if it's a 5-minute session or an hour long or even longer. It's the bliss state you have afterwards. And it's just very, very powerful.
I can attest to that, but I'll talk about that later for sure. Anyway, I want you just to share a little bit about yourself, Teresa, and say how you got into the work that you're doing today.
So I was a pro-competitive sports athlete, and I initially started doing breath work for increasing my lung capacity. So for me, it was always about nutrition and my workouts and recovery. And essentially, recovery is sleep, but then it's also the other biohacking tricks. And I stumbled across breath work for lung capacity, for functional performance. So this is how I got started. And initially it was just 5 to 10 minutes of doing breath work online on a YouTube video, like very, very basic in the beginning. There was nothing else that was out there at that point. And then I started doing breath work for calming the nerves. For example, box breathing, which is very common right now in the mindful breath work community. When we think about breath work, that's usually the type of breath work we're thinking of. So this is what I did on it in addition to the functional breath work. And then I stumbled across a transformational breathwork session, and it happened to me. I always say it was calling for me. I had no idea what I was doing. It was called DMT breathing, and at that point, I was doing breathwork every day because I like doing it, and it helped me instantly. So this session was 45 minutes, which was back then very long for me. At that point, I think the most what I did was 30 minutes. So I was like, oh, well, let's just try another session. I don't know what DMT breathing is, but let's just do it. And I did it. And I remember this so clearly. It was 9 rounds. So usually we do rounds in breath work for functional and mindful breath work, not for transformational breath work though. But everyone has their own style. However, I'm in the 7th round, and I'm in my breath hold, and I am just somewhere else. I have this out of body experience. I was just looking at myself, and I did not understand what was going on, because when I did breath work before, it was with a purpose of calming my nerves or increasing my lung capacity. This was just wow to me. I had no idea what was going on. And I remember the 2 rounds afterwards, I was still so, I don't know, overwhelmed with everything that just happened during that breath hold. I had no feeling for time. But I remember afterwards, I was laying there for a while, and I'm guessing it was about 30 minutes, just processing what just happened. And it was life-changing for me, because I was dealing with panic attacks up until that point. Um, Actually, to the point that I had them every week, so at some extent, and sometimes they were a little less or not as potent, but at that point they were really, really harsh. However, with this session, it stopped. It stopped completely. And I tried everything. The only thing I did not want to do was medication. I was on this hunt for something that will essentially stop this. At that point, I had no idea what it was. I tried all kinds of things, but nothing helped until this. I had one more panic attack after this, but months after, and then I did another transformational session, and they stopped completely. So that was a couple of years ago. So it was very profound for me, and literally life-changing. And I had this moment that letting go moment, the processing of the emotions, it was just life-changing for me, so that I changed my whole career and everything around it, and proceed this as my career. So I have to say, along the functional breath work and the mindful breath work, which was a couple of months before I got into the transformational breath work, I already got into all the books and certifications around that, but not the transformational part of it. That was just something I stumbled across. But it was just very, very mind-blowing for me, and this is what I sticked with.
Good. I'm glad you did as well. I'll come back and kind of go into my experience, because one thing that I can share is my experience of having a session with you, which I'm grateful for, because it was one of those things where I'm the same thing where you're like, okay, what just happened? And there was so many different sensations that happened during that period. And even days later, when I was trying to explain to my friend, because before we kind of thought it was a thing, like more of breath work, and we'd both kind of been in India and done pranayama practices and different practices, so that was our awareness of breath
Exactly.
work. And then you'd say, oh, this is something different. So I'm like, okay, let me try this something different. What could that be? But it was so definitely definitely different. Yeah, definitively different.
Yeah.
I think that's the word that I'm looking for. But also I want to firstly just find out about the transformational aspect of it, and why is it so powerful, and what is it that you are what is it that you're working with when you're holding a session?
Mm-hmm. So, well, I do have another modality that I'm using because I'm using a sound system that has a that includes binaural beats and different frequencies. It works with the brain waves. So this is something in addition. So it's not just the breath I'm using, the conscious connected breathing technique. It's also the sound system that just intensifies and deepens everything and just makes you feel even more. So that's one thing. However, the transformational part about this is that you are entering a different dimension with this. And it is always compared to psychedelics. Most of the time it's LSD specifically. And I am working with a client that does tests and labs around psychedelics. So when she did the breath work, the transformational breath work session, she was like, this is exactly like LSD. And it does the same thing to your brain because it's the brain activity, the cell activity that goes on. It's the opening of the consciousness, and that's the part that is comparable to a psychedelic journey as well. It's the opening of the consciousness. You're seeing colors and shapes and possibly encounter someone, a loved one, or your future self, or you go out of your own body and disassociate yourself in that moment with your physical body. And that's just what is so transformational, because you're not in your physical body at that moment.
Let me talk about it now, because I did a session with you. One of the things that, well, many of the things, it's just not just one, was the period of time, because I think we were like together for like a couple of hours or a little bit more than that. And I was not taking any kind of notice of like where the time was. I didn't have anything lined up afterwards. So there was no rush for me, because I'm like, let me give time to this. And because I know how things go. Things always go as they go. And like, if you have an idea that you've got something else to do on the end of something else, then you're never really present, because you're always aware that you have to kind of get out of the situation. So I was open to just being fully there. And what I really liked about what you did prior to even getting into the session was really just explaining some of the experience and sensations that I could experience during that time as well. And some of them that I can think of as well and remember was one, I think I mentioned to you, a sensation of just being really cold, like really cold. And it wasn't necessarily a cold day in the UK as well. And to be honest, like up until the point that you come with, I'd had like the window open, which is unusual for me because I don't like the cold. So for me to have the window open means that it's not as cold as possible, or as cold as is unbearable to me, but I'm quite delicate when it comes to cold. But there were sensations of one feeling really, really cold, really uncomfortably cold as well for my own personal preference, and wanting to get my mind out of the discomfort of being cold, because cold is literally something that will change my personality, change my state, distract me from doing what I want to do. If I'm cold, it's like the concentration goes out the window. There was the sense of being cold, but I really stayed with that as well. But like different times during the session that you were leading, there was one when I got into the breathing pattern as well, how I didn't really feel that I was fighting it too much, because you have like a specific breathing pattern that I'll leave you to describe, but also that just noticing a lot of involuntary kind of movement that was coming from different parts of the body that didn't necessarily make sense. There was sometimes like I'd just have like a weird twitch in the left leg, or one time I really remember my right thumb just really just going hell for leather at one point, and just like twitching, and it's like, okay, I'm noticing that, but I'm not going to focus on that too much, but I'm just like, let me just kind of bring those things in. And another one as well that comes to mind is, I think it was towards the end as well, where we were talking, it was about release, because the journey that I took with you was about abundance. Was that when I was lying on the bed, that there was a sense of just energy coming out of my hands, and I couldn't really work out whether it was coming in or going out, but that sense of there being like a flow of something,
Mm-hmm.
and that real kind of energetic sensation.
Circulation, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm used to because I do a lot of different kind of energy work with different coaches as well. So we're always kind of pulling on energy and feeling our energy body and the energy flowing in and out of us. But it was just at those just in my hands, because my palms were up, and there was this real kind of like surge where it just, I'm like, is this going up or is it going down? And then it's like, don't think about it too much, just get your mind out of it and just let yourself notice these things as well. There was another time as well, I think, when, especially when we're talking about releasing, that I really felt a real tension, like kind of at the bottom of my like my lower lip. It was
Mm-hmm.
almost like I was like holding, like almost like scowling, but it was only the tension was more so at the lower lip than the upper one,
Mm-hmm.
and really kind of feeling almost like some, like, what is that? What's going on with me? Why is that come? It's like, am I growling? Am I feeling um am I having a reaction to what it is that we're talking about? Because abundance, money is like, it's so charged. And with my own family history, there's so much around money, which is why I chose this one. Like, let me work on this, because it's always something that I'm having to work with in my own life in order to move forward to the space that I see for myself, and not be pulled back by the old stuff. So
Yeah.
it's always this kind of push and pull, and noticing when I'm kind of sabotaging, or kind of making things not happen the way that they're being presented to me. So I was aware of that. um was there another thing that I wanted to speak about? And then also really getting into the sense of having a deep conversation with myself. You were speaking, there was the music, and then there was also another voice there as well talking, and I could really sense that it was talking to me on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me almost like encouraging myself to go, this is what we're going to do. Yes, we're going to take this on. Yes, we're going to accept this. Yes, it was on so many different levels, very much a transformational situation. Just one, because it was new, to have something happen on that level. I've experienced binaural beats before. I went through a stage where that's all I'd listen to, so I know that sensation. But to have that layered in with the breath work and your voice, and just feeling,
Subliminal messages, yeah.
yeah, just feeling so many more things maybe combined, that maybe I felt in different practices or different modalities separately, but now it's all combined, you know
Exactly.
so yeah, just feeding back on some of the things that I felt around that. And I don't know if that relates to a specific thing, or it's just feedback that you hear.
The coldness is very, very common as a reaction. Usually, and I said that to you after the session, it's common in the beginning, because this is when you settle down, you start to come down, you focus on your breathing. You're just taking the time for yourself in a long time. So it's just your body is resting. And this is when the cold creeps in. The cold is also a sign for stress. So it's also whatever your issue was that you were thinking of and that was happening in your mind during the session is the stress manifesting, basically. So when you said you have this throughout the whole time, you have a lot of stress around the thing you were thinking about.
Mm,
And when you said, you are aware of all the limiting beliefs around money within your family, this is, what is coming up, and
mm,
it's being brought up as stress, because it in the conscious world, it gives you stress because you
mm,
have to deal with it. You maybe have to talk to your parents about this. Maybe you have to you feel judged for whatever you're doing.
Mm.
So this is that's what the coldness is all about.
Mm.
For example, the twitching and the physical reactions, and those are the things that most people are really afraid of when they do a transformational session. That's mostly because they're afraid of losing control. You know, when you see on Instagram what's going on, those are usually very extreme examples. I would say about 50% don't have any physical reaction at all. And then there is a range of what's happening. But the very intense ones where you have, for example, a tetany going on, the T-Rex arms, the claws. This is basically how much it's a picture of how much you cannot surrender in your conscious life. Because in the end, letting go, giving in, opening up to this resource is about letting go, is about surrender. Can you, you know, like you said, it's you're in this process thinking about it, your mind trying to make sense of it, trying to make you think if you want to let go, and then you're just let it go. So this is that sensation from the body that is tied to the subconscious and then essentially to the conscious world as well.
I was like curious, like why did I get so cold?
Yeah.
It was just unusual because before then I'd been fine. If anything, I was thinking maybe I'll get a bit hot, you know, because sometimes I was expecting to go the other way. And even it was at one point I'm like, I'm so cold, I might just have to get under the duvet, you know, it was like
Yeah.
so uncomfortable for me. But it's interesting that it represents a stress because trust me, it's been like the biggest story in that family.
Yeah.
It's caused like decades and decades, even prior to my birth. It's been a real shadow, um, you know, which has then perpetuated itself through subsequent generations that are
Yep.
still, you know, like people will get judged for that more so than, you know, who are you as a person and what are you doing? It's like
Absolutely.
that thing
Absolutely.
comes first. So all of that like completely makes sense to me. And
Also the jaw or the lips, so
mm,
this is tied to, you know, the head dimension, which also
mm,
includes the throat. That is tied to, and you probably know that already, you know, the throat chakra. um Being allowed to talk about it,
right.
not holding back with your speech. So that is also, you know, when you're tied here and you have all this tension around your mouth and your throat, your jaw, this is
Mm.
about not being able to speak up or being afraid of speaking up, um, and so on.
Yeah, it was, you know, I a definite recommend, absolutely a definite recommend. What I came away with over the subsequent days as well, because I think that day I ended up like being so busy that I couldn't even leave the house, and I really wanted to go for a walk, you know. But over the subsequent days, I made sure that I went out, and I really, I don't know if anyone's ever fed this back to you, but I really wanted to make sure that I went out and stamped my feet, you know, and really kind of like went for a walk, but really felt the ground kind of vibrate and
Mm-hmm.
really take
Mm-hmm.
real heavy steps and kind of feel the ground. Because I don't know if I needed to bring myself back to earth or what that was, but I was just like, I need to go for a walk and I need to go for a long walk without listening to anything. And I just need to really make heavy steps because I just wanted to feel something coming back at me, you know, and
That's
I have those moments.
interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know what that was because I wasn't feeling any rage. I wasn't aware of any rage because I know sometimes when I'm just like, oh, I need to go for a walk. You know, it's that kind of
Yeah.
I need to go and I need to just like stamp for a bit. It wasn't that kind of thing. It's just I need to feel
The ground.
yeah,
I,
the
f-
ground
I
of something coming through
I
me. Yeah.
feel like it could also be, you know, steps are a sign of moving forward. You're not moving backwards or you're not standing, you're moving forward. So maybe it was a sign of you having all that energy combined in your body, in your physical body, and moving forward from what you felt during the session.
Mm,
Um, Maybe there was something you were stuck on, you didn't have this decision yet, and maybe it was just a sign of you, you know, moving forward, starting
mhm,
maybe something new. That is something that I would interpret in this. The grounding part is not uncommon,
Yeah.
especially after a session. A lot of clients want to lay down a little longer and just, you know, feel themselves laying on the ground. Sometimes they hug themselves. So the grounding part is very common. I haven't really heard about, you know, moving forward and really feeling the steps, but most of the time it's just, you know, wanting to feel the ground and just know that they're in the physical body again.
Yeah, it wasn't until the next day, because like I said, I just kind of like ended up being in the house and then it went dark and I'm like, I wanted to go out. So it wasn't until the next day that I was able to like just, I want to go for a walk. I want to go for a long walk as well. You know, you have those days where like, I need to go
Mhm.
walk for like an hour or so and just move a bit.
Absolutely. I'm a walker too. At the end
Yeah,
of the day, this is how I process my day.
yeah, yeah, I love it. And I especially love it, even though I've got like a backlog of podcasts and audiobooks to sometimes just like not listen to anything, you
Yeah.
know, and just kind of allow my head to just like do what you want. And also so that I can look further than, you know, just 2 feet in front of me.
Yeah.
Because I really feel that, you know, my vision has suffered. I think most of us who work at home and are constantly staring at these screens, like always just I get to the point where I'm like,
Absolutely.
even here, sometimes I just need to stare out the window and it's like, what's the furthest thing that I can see? So my eyes trying to kind of look far instead of like this short
True.
vision
Yeah.
that
True.
I've managed to really damage myself by doing this work. Anyway, what I also wanted to ask you, because you have these different journeys, like, are you the designer of the specific journeys? And then how do you go about creating those journeys, if it is?
During my certification process, I was basically learning how to script them. You have a theme, a topic, and what I have learned from previous or from other breathwork sessions I went to, it was that mostly they were just playing music and you breathe and you just, you know, you adjust your breathing technique. You adjust your speed to the music that is playing, and usually that is, you know, in rounds. So there's different music for the breathing pattern than it is in the breath hold, and so on and so on. So for me, it was always, you know, you have some sort of intention when the teacher tells you to have an intention. But most of the time I just went in there and I had no idea. So this is when I wanted to have something different. So I gathered the topics that are very common, I would say, you know, because they're all tied to something to let go of. Because this is, you know, this is about going through blockages and emotional, trapped emotions. So it is always tied to something you have to let go of. Um, so for example, one journey is literally about the art of letting go, because this is a very common theme with women and men, mostly with women though, because it's also the part of not speaking up, for example. Um, so there, you know, it's not just the big things we have to let go of, but it's also the little things we have to let go of, the things that accumulate during the day. And it's like you and me, we walk to let go of things during the day, right? But then it's the big things that we are sometimes not even paying attention to, or we don't want to pay attention to. And the nice thing is when you breathe, it's your breath showing you what you need to look at in this moment. So if whatever it is you have not been looking at, being ignored, it's your breath is showing you that you need to look at it. It's your awareness compass, basically. It's look at this. I need your attention. Don't push me away. So this is something that is what the breath literally does. And then I find if I give themes and something that people have a relation to, and have an intention to, but also that can be personal, but also can be generalized. So I think this is something that is very, very helpful in my sessions. Sometimes I do have some things that I suggest that you could think of. But sometimes a person comes into a session and has a very specific topic, and whatever I say, they just think about their topic because it's very, very pronounced and potent in their life right now. However, it all spirals down to an emotion, whether it's rage or sadness, happiness, guilt, shame, whatever. It all comes down to an emotion that is somewhere being stuck, and this is why it's being triggered inside of you. So this is how I came up with those scripts, and honestly, it's a constant process because I have like a general script, and then I do this script with someone, and then the next time I leave certain lines out, and then I don't feel this, so I'm not saying this. So this is like it's a fluid script, I would say, and this is what I love about this because I'm not like super tied to the script. It also comes down to what I feel is right to be said in this moment. And then sometimes the music has to play a bigger role. For example, I am just facilitating a session, and it's called The Essence. And it's very powerful in the music. So this is one of the journeys where I actually don't talk as much. I literally let the breath and the music do its thing. And sometimes you just have to feel inside of you and see what feels good in terms of the script and what feels good in terms of the client or the group. If it's more intimate or not. It's a fluid process, and this is what I love about it. It's not just one thing, and if it fits for all, it's usually not.
It was super effective, and it was almost, I don't know if it's a deliberate thing on your end, but because you had the subliminal track, a lot of the time what you were saying was then echoed by the track, and it was like, this is like like I was hella impressed. I really was. I'm like, this is really something new. I just like hope more people will really find out about your work and what it is that you're doing, because it's a very unique way. I've not experienced that particular way of doing things before. I wanted to ask you about the breathing pattern as well, because the breathing pattern that you have is, we talk about box breathing and all the different kind of pranayama type breathings, but this one was a very specific breathing, the conscious connected breath pattern. Can you talk about that, what it is, and then also why it is that way?
So one thing that is outstanding is that we breathe through the mouth and not through the nose. And there are different kinds of techniques for the conscious connected breathing technique. However, one thing that is always there is that it's a breath into your diaphragm, and then it goes into your chest, and then it goes out. So most teachers say it has to be circular. It has to be fluid. There should never be a stop. For my instance, I have found that it's easier to think in steps. So what I usually teach is that you breathe into your belly, then you breathe into your chest, and then you let it go through the mouth. So it's all through the mouth. And for some people, it feels better if they do this in a circular pattern, and they do a wave from the belly to the chest. But for most, they get most out of it if they think in those steps, because they really get the air into the diaphragm, where you should usually breathe into, and then the chest, which is also it has its effect, but it should not be the focus. So usually, even if you do the the technique, it's about, I would say 70% into the belly and then 30% into the chest. However, I'm not so adamant about how people do this because in the end, it has to feel good to you. And that's mostly because people get stuck on the technique. They think about the technique way too much. And when I guide the session and I breathe in the session as well to just remember you of the technique and the flow and sometimes even the speed or the depth of the breath. Sometimes they ask me afterwards, so I heard you were correcting my breath. I'm like, no. I was not correcting your breath. I'm just trying to, push you to do this breath. And I always say, it has to feel good for you. It has to feel good for you. Don't force it. It is already weird that you're breathing through the mouth and not through the nose. And the first 5 minutes is always, this thinking process. Am I doing this right? Am I doing the technique right? Am I doing the breath right? Into the belly, into the chest, and then out. So it's the first 5 minutes, and I'm sure you felt the same way. You have to think about it, and then at some point your subconscious takes over, and it feels very natural. And even if you drift off or you swallow, you go right back into the technique.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was surprised at how dry my mouth didn't get. I thought I'm just going to be parched by the end of this. And there were moments where I just kind of had to take a moment to kind of, just work my mouth to get it moist, but never to the point where I thought, I'm just going to be gasping for breath. It's going to be like a desert in my mouth. It was a really powerful way of just after the mind kind of stopped, like you say, policing, like, are we doing this right? Is it okay? And then just going like, okay, let's just believe that it is all right. If it isn't, then I'm sure that you're going to just kind of pop in and just kind of get me back on track. And then another point that I just wanted to talk about within that journey was that then there was a point where there was this deeply held breath, like holding it for an hour, which I love holding my breath, by the way. It goes back to my singing days and doing breath work. So I know the power of the breath and being able to hold the breath. So it was kind of like a challenge that my tutor would always kind of have to me, like the longer you can hold the breath, the better. So that was like a real enjoyment for me. But I know for some people, holding the breath is like a challenging and quite terrifying, because your mind's like, I'm gonna die. It has that
Absolutely.
feeling for you as well. But I enjoyed that part. But what you did there was to guide me to like really take a deep breath, hold, I think you said it was for 60 seconds, and then let go, but also yell as well, and like scream as well. I don't know how loud I went, but just can you explain the significance of that point in the journey, what that's doing?
Absolutely. So the aim of the journeys in general is always a release. And all the journeys are built to have this high point basically where all the release is supposed to happen. So we start slowly, we're warming up the breath, your engine basically. And about, I think in your journey, it actually takes a little longer, but it kind of depends on the journey as well. But so we guide into the journey, and the music gets is at some point a little slower and more calm, and then it gets a little more wilder, and there's a lot more going on in the sound effects and in the emotions in yourself. For example, I'm not sure if you heard that, but there's actually a storm coming and you hear the thunder. So that is basically, the emotions are supposed to come up. They're like a storm. It's the thunder coming, the rain is starting. It's that this big explosion is about to happen. So it's not just the musical part, it's also the breath. Usually you adjust your breathing pattern a little bit to it. Maybe, I'm not sure if you recognize that, but it usually goes a little bit deeper. And that is just because you just feel the rhythm within. It's also part of the frequencies that I'm using at that point, because your brain waves are a little bit, they're running basically. They're not in the calm state, they're at the higher state. And it comes to that point where there is this release, and I talk a little faster and a little more excessive and aggressive, because in the end, I want you to have a big release here. So when the breath hold comes up, during the breath hold, which is 60 seconds most of the time, sometimes it's a little bit longer, you hold your breath, and I'm talking very excessively, because this is when I try to push your mind and the subconscious mind to release. And this is when I also say things that you might not want to hear, or that you have your mind stuck on, and you need to release it. This is happening in the 60 seconds. And then with the scream after the breath hold is you release it. It's a psychological effect of release. And I always love this part when I explain in the beginning that we're doing a scream, and everyone is like, what do you mean we're doing a scream? I did not think that I'm screaming. I thought I'm breathing here. But it's tied to the release part. It's a psychological effect where it's not the same as screaming at your partner or at your children or whatever, it's the part of letting go, letting everything out, emotional release. And this is what this is tied to in the journey. It's the emotional release. You let everything out. And a lot of clients cry after this, because it's the de-stress, it's everything falling off you, and this is your body showing it.
I was surprised actually, because I usually cry at stuff like that, that I wasn't into. Like I remember like just having like water come down my eyes, but not like you the odd tear, but not like a big old thing. Because a lot of the time when I do get really into practices like this, where it's about a release of some sort, then I go off into. So I was kind of going like, I'm probably going to cry. I was all ready for that, but that's not really what came out. But
No,
it
it's
was
it's different for everyone.
yeah.
Everyone thinks they're like going crazy and so on, but everyone is different, and it comes down to the emotions, to the physical reactions. It's
Mm.
and every session is different. Your next session might be a lot more crying.
Yeah, what I want to say is definitely like thank you for giving me the opportunity, so that I can speak with knowledge, and really explain to anyone listening what it is that you can experience, and then kind of trying to figure out what happened without trying to overly analyze it. So, there's been a lot of journaling, a lot of walking, a lot of like, what was that? Like a lot of saying to my friend, I did this thing. I don't even know what I'm saying about it yet, but it was different. We're just kind of like, I
Yeah,
can't really
you're
tell
trying
you
to
what
connect the
happened.
dots.
Yeah, I can't really tell you what happened, but I know that something happened and it was different, and it was, definitely something great to experience. And there's so much that we're all trying to like move past and, like you say, let go and heal from in this world right now, that it's great that there are so many different modalities and techniques that are available for people to use. And sometimes I think having someone guide you, and so that you get out the way and they can really hone in on your own, and speak to you, the higher aspect of yourself, and your own subconscious, and you just kind of be there and just do what you need to, just do the thing that you need to do, just breathe. That should be relatively
Absolutely.
easy. And then
Absolutely.
kind of get out of the way, because sometimes you try for trying's sake, and still you just feel it's like a work in progress. Like I said, this has been like a
Absolutely.
a generational shadow that is, you know, that I'm always constantly aware of as I move forward, because it's not, you know, it's not just me, it's it's the reaction to what it is that I'm doing, that I will, as a result of it, pull myself back into a safe space, which is never a safe space because I want to move forward. So you know, hopefully, you know, I like what you kind of attributed that walking to, and you know, I'm gonna let that be what it is on that as well.
Yeah, this is what I love about this, because in the end, it comes down to you, what you make out of it, right? Some people have this session, they're like, all right, that was a nice experience, and I'll move on. Like they don't take what is being brought up, you know, they just experience it. And then there's others that they really want to dig deeper now. They were brought into this dimension that was showing them something. So whether that is the mirror into the inner world or the future self or whatever it is, you know, most of the time people are like, the subconscious mind is a very dark place. I'm like, no, it's not. It's absolutely not. Like I have to take that fear away. It's a very beautiful space too. And but in the end, you know, are you receptive and open to what was happening during the session? Are you open to take it into the conscious world and make something out of it? So it's beautiful. It's beautiful what you said, because you're taking action. I love it.
Yeah, like I never want to let an opportunity go to waste, you know, especially if it's about moving forward. And one of the things, like I say, one of the things, but one of the many things that I can take from that as well is just having that experience of going deeper into another like realm of me, you know. And one of the things that I'm really working on within my work to be able to you know, translate to other people, but also in my own work, is to be able to straddle all dimensions of where it is that we are, you know. So I don't just want to be in a space where I'm just all about, you know, the light and the fluffy and the high mind, which is cool, but I want to find a way, and this is kind of like my challenge, my kind of thing at the moment, is to find a way of having that, you know, the higher energetic resonance, to be in that space, but also to be in the world, you know. So I'm not just checking out and trying to be all love and light and pretend that stuff isn't happening in the world, but then also not to be so grounded in the 3D that I'm forgetting that there are different realms and areas of myself that I can pull into line. So my this is what I've been working on. It's like, is there a way that I can be in all of these aspects at the majority of the time? No, it's not always easy, you know. We get pulled into one thing when we have to kind of deal with like real world stuff, but then in the time that I get pulled into real world stuff and have real world reactions, remind myself that there's more, you know. We can pull on something, be here and be there, and be this kind of multi-dimensional being in the world in a new and powerful way. That's really what my my journey of my own evolution is about. It's like, this is what I want for myself, and the minute that I can work out how that happens is the minute that I can then go, hey, I think I've found a way that we can do the both, because sometimes things go too far one way, too far the other. So that was just a way of like, how can I make that happen for myself? It's a constant, you know, move, which is why I've been doing a lot of kind of energy work practices, and then not be too far off in that, because sometimes in those groups, like, people are just like, oh my god, this feels amazing, it's feel cool. Yeah, it does, you know, but let's talk about the world as well, because what I've found in you know, like recent groups and recent discussions that I've had in those spaces, people don't really want to talk about what's happening in the world.
They're in this bubble for this time period, and then what
yeah, and the reason I went into kind of training and like expanding my awareness of energy is because I want to have the two working in tandem at all time, so that we can then, you know, all show up in different ways. So that whole experience and the experience with yourself was really helping me add to all of those. So thank you for that as well. So actually, before you go, I wanted to know, what did you do as an athlete? What was your discipline?
I was a natural bodybuilder.
Wow, amazing. How long did you do that for?
About 10 years.
Wow. Oh, good for you. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, I was like a local athlete. So, but I was like track and field. Good for you. So you're a strong woman. Good for you.
I am, yeah, in my conscious world.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much for the conversation today. Can you just let everyone know where to find you? And also, you had a special gift for the listeners.
Absolutely. It's shebreath.com. And then shebreath underscore official is my Instagram. And I would like to offer everyone 20% off for any one-on-one sessions with me, whether it's a single session or a bundle with the code Her Conversations.
Perfect. And I highly recommend that. Thank you so much for your conversation today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for a great episode, and thank you, the listener, for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would greatly appreciate you leaving a review and share this episode with somebody who you feel will benefit from our guest's information. You can find out more about me on my website, that's carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com, on Facebook as Carol May Whittick, and on Instagram as Kazmick, Cazmick. So until the next episode, enjoy your week, take care. Thank you.